Kendrick was a long time ago. I don't even know if he'll remember. He was going to the Yet Center in Compton, and as part of a probationary program, I had to go be a big brother at this Yet Center, and me and my homie Tato,
getting hours signed off. Hell yeah.
Yeah, and I wasn't Kendrick's big brother, but he used to come in there and like, he was real young, man, and he was just always charismatic, always good with the words, man, and just a funny little guy. I don't even know if he remembers that. And so when I had and we grew up like across the street and around the corner from each other, but I gang bang hard, and Dot, he non-affiliated, but he Compton.
Something unusual has been bubbling up in Compton lately, and the energy around it is starting to spread far beyond the city limits. Folks who pay close attention to West Coast culture have been whispering about a shift, and now it's turned into a full-blown conversation. People who once moved quietly in the background are suddenly speaking their minds, and the game is right in the middle of it. What started as small neighborhood chatter has now turned into a loud, messy situation that everyone is trying to figure out. The real issue started heating up when the game did a recent interview and spoke on Kendrick Lamar in a way that caught a lot of people off guard. It wasn't the first time he shared stories about Kendrick's early days, but something about this round had folks close to Kendrick reacting instantly. And it wasn't just random noise. The people who stepped forward were individuals who actually grew up around Kendrick, people who knew him long before the fame, the tours, the awards, or the polished image the industry built around him. For the past year, Compton has quietly been split between two groups, those who lean toward Kendrick and those who stand with the game. That tension finally started spilling into the open.
So, and everybody from the hood that don't bang still is from the hood.
Right, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, he got that, but I always knew. So in the beginning, I would be going, in the beginning of my career, I'd be going by Top Dog's house and just, helping him with J-Rock stuff and lending my 2 cents, since I was a little bit ahead of the curve than from where they were. And I was always asking Top, I was like, yo, let me get Dot. He was like, no. And so he knew what he was, I knew what he was. J-Rock, when I took J-Rock on tour, Dot was hype man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I asked Top again at my house in Glendale. I was like, let me get Dot. He was like, nah. But he was like, yo, what if we piece up TDE? And I was like, man, I got Black Wall Street. I'm good.
Yeah.
I want you to do
So
your
when you
thing.
say let me get Dot, are you talking about let me get him as an artist or as a feature?
Let me get him as an artist.
Right.
Even though the game has consistently shown respect toward Kendrick in public, the environment around them hasn't felt balanced. Kendrick hasn't returned that same level of support, especially during the major rap disputes that had the whole world watching. That silence made the game's newest comments feel even heavier to the people on Kendrick's side. Now, here's where things got explosive. According to folks close to Kendrick, they believe the game was making certain stories sound bigger than what really happened. They didn't like the phrasing, the details, or the way he positioned himself in the narrative. In their eyes, it felt like he was stepping into moments that didn't belong to him. And because they already felt like the game didn't publicly stand beside Kendrick during the situation with Drake, the tension was already high before the interview even aired. This latest story gave them the spark they needed to speak out, and they did so with no hesitation. From my perspective, watching this unfold, it's interesting how some people keep trying to mold Kendrick into this untouched, flawless persona, almost like they want to pretend he floated through Compton without ever dealing with anything real. That doesn't reflect the version of Kendrick that people who were actually there talk about. They describe someone who grew up in the same environments as everyone else, surrounded by the same danger, the same pressure, the same tough realities that shaped so many kids from Compton. It's unrealistic to act like Kendrick was never outside, never connected to anyone, never part of the world around him. People who knew him long before he became a superstar will tell you the exact opposite. He wasn't some gentle scholar walking down the block with a notebook every day. He was in a place where real life hits hard, and he experienced that just like everyone else around him.
To think that this was cool and major, that's cool. I think it's a dub for the coast. I think that what K-Dot did for a lot of West Coast last night was hard as I think it was hard. I think it was dope of him and big-hearted of him to do that shit for. You know what I'm saying? But that learned that shit on the way up. The same way that he looking out, Snoop looked out for me like that. I looked out for Kendrick like that. I looked out for Nip like that. You know what I'm saying? I looked out for Top Dog before it was, Top. I could have Top Dog wanted to give me half a Top Dog. I didn't want nothing from though, bro. I just wanted to push in the right direction.
Trying to erase that part of his story only makes the discussion more confusing. So when the game shares stories about crossing paths with Kendrick during those earlier years, it makes sense why it hits so many nerves. The game has been in the industry for a long time, and he's always been vocal, sometimes in ways that get misunderstood. The issue here isn't whether something happened or didn't happen. It's about how fragile the relationship has become between both sides. His interview didn't create the tension, it just exposed it again. Now people from Kendrick's circle feel like the game is shifting the spotlight in a way they don't appreciate. Meanwhile, the game appears to see himself as someone simply sharing memories from earlier days, the kind of behind-the-scenes stories artists often tell, two completely different perspectives colliding in the middle of a city already divided. What's happening now isn't gossip. It's the result of years of unspoken frustration, loyalty lines forming, and old disagreements resurfacing. And with the way things are moving, this situation doesn't look like it's calming down anytime soon. It's becoming clearer that the divide between Kendrick's people and the game's people might be bigger than anyone thought. And with everyone watching how the next move plays out, this story is far from finished. One thing people outside of Los Angeles rarely understand is how deep neighborhood politics actually run, and how much they influence the music scene behind the curtains. It's not just beats, bars, and record deals. There are unwritten rules, old tensions, and long histories that shape who works with who. And Kendrick Lamar's situation with Roddy Ricch is one of the clearest examples of that dynamic. For years, fans kept asking why Kendrick and Roddy never teamed up on a track. Both are from Compton, both skyrocketed in their careers, both respected across the industry, so naturally people assumed a collaboration was guaranteed. But behind the scenes, things weren't that simple. There were neighborhood alignments, long-standing divisions, and circles that didn't mix. Roddy Ricch was associated with one side of Compton, and Kendrick was tied to the opposite. And in Los Angeles, those relationships matter.
Because I already knew what he was going to be. And nobody didn't understand it yet except everybody that was around Top and TDE. They knew. And I knew. And at first, everybody was saying how he rapped too fast and it was going around the hood and all of that, right? And I was just like, y'all tripping. This is him. So when they was doing when he dropped Section 80 and they was doing the thing downtown, Top hit me. I was in the bed, man, for some reason, watching Breaking Bad or something. I was comfortable, womanizing. I can't even remember her name, but she could be left for the movement. So Top hit me. He was like, "Can you come up here? We Dog is up here, Dre is up here, Corrupt up here. Can you come down here?" So I got in my car. I drove down there, and man, that's when the torch was passed.
Even at the highest level of fame, people like to put Kendrick in this box where he's portrayed as someone who avoided every form of conflict and floated above all the street dynamics. They build him up as if he existed outside of everything around him, untouched by the real world he grew up in. But that's not the version you hear from the people who actually grew up beside him. Kendrick wasn't just the quiet kid with a notebook. He was from a neighborhood with its own code, its own structure, and he moved with the people who raised him. So when the world kept wondering why he never worked with Roddy Ricch during the peak of Roddy's run, the answer people in Compton already knew was simple. The politics didn't match. And Kendrick wasn't about to cross lines his circle wasn't comfortable with. That's how serious the situation was. It wasn't about talent, ego, or pride. It was about loyalty and where he stood. It wasn't until the Peace Walk happened recently, an event meant to show unity across areas that normally stay divided, that things finally shifted. That's when Kendrick invited Roddy Ricch on stage unexpectedly, giving him a moment in front of the whole city. After that, he even put Roddy on GNX, marking their first real musical link. But for years before that, it wasn't happening. Not because Kendrick hated Roddy, but because Kendrick was still operating under the same structure he grew up in. This is why that Kendrick was always the good one. Image never really matched reality. He wasn't some background extra in his own city. He wasn't sheltered. He wasn't just a book-smart kid who stumbled into rap by accident. He was part of the environment, and that environment shaped everything, including his choices in the industry. So when the game went public with certain comments, people close to Kendrick felt like he was revealing things they didn't want the world to see, especially details that made Kendrick's background sound less polished than some fans assume.
Your artist went on the thing talking about that he tried to sign Kendrick Lamar, right?
What are you talking about? You talking about Gang?
Yeah, hold up, Terrell, you explain it, because I
remember like this. You have to remember, and I think Terrell gonna agree with this. You wasn't around back in them days.
When they had GDE, I was around.
No,
yeah.
we talking about...
Kendrick's homies were not happy at all with the way the game described things. They felt like he was putting extra emphasis on certain parts of Kendrick's past, as if trying to redefine Kendrick's image in the public eye. And while some things the game said can't really be argued, like the fact that he took Kendrick on tour in the early days or helped open doors when Kendrick was still finding his sound, other parts made Kendrick's circle tense up instantly. For example, the game talked about how he believed in Kendrick long before the world knew his name, back when J-Rock was the main star and Kendrick was still the fast-spitting kid from the neighborhood who hadn't broken through yet. According to the game, he was telling Top Dawg from the very beginning that Kendrick was going to be the one, that Kendrick would eventually become one of the biggest artists of a generation. He made it sound like he saw the future before anybody else, and that didn't sit right with some people. To Kendrick's camp, it felt like the game was placing himself too deep into Kendrick's origin story, almost like he was claiming part of Kendrick's rise as his own. And the timing didn't help. They already felt like the game didn't publicly support Kendrick during his situation with Drake, a moment they expected loyalty from anyone claiming closeness. So hearing him speak so confidently about Kendrick's come up years later only made the tension hit harder. In the end, the conflict isn't just about one interview. It's years of layered relationships, old memories, shifting alliances, and unspoken expectations finally bubbling to the surface. And now that everything is out in the open, the city is paying attention again, wondering what the next move will be and who's going to speak up next. Once the game started sharing those stories about Kendrick Lamar's early days, the reaction from Kendrick's camp was immediate and sharp. It didn't take long before people close to Kendrick began pushing back, claiming flat out that some of what the game said simply wasn't accurate, and the first person to speak up was someone whose name carries weight in anything connected to TDE or Kendrick, 2 T's. Now, 2 T's isn't just some random voice chiming in. He's been around long enough to know the details, and he already has his own history of tension with the game. So when he stepped forward, he didn't waste time trying to sound polite. He basically said the game was exaggerating and insisted that the game never tried to sign Kendrick in the first place. The message was direct, emotional, and clearly aimed to shut the whole narrative down instantly. But because 2 T's and the game already have long-standing issues, including neighborhood disagreements and past problems that go beyond music, a lot of people felt like his reaction was predictable. They felt like he would have gone against anything. The game said no matter what, just off the strength of their history alone. So some folks watching from the outside didn't take his response as the final word. They wanted to know if someone else could back up what he was saying, and that's when Kendrick Lamar's cousin stepped into the conversation. Instead of coming in calmly, Kendrick's cousin added a whole different level of pressure to the situation. He basically questioned how the game could even present the story like that, acting as if he saw something special in Kendrick from day one and tried to sign him. To Kendrick's cousin, that idea didn't match reality at all. He made it clear that while the game was talking about supporting Kendrick behind closed doors, he himself had been showing love publicly, unapologetically, and consistently.
Nip asked me personally what he could do to pay me back for what I did for him. I met Nip on the streets. I brought Nip in the studio, Encore Studios, Burbank, California. I got on 2 of his songs and let him go do his thing. And Nip rose to his celebrity and to his power. But I was just a step on the ladder for some, I was just, there for a that was already gonna go to the moon. But ain't gonna try to strike Chuck Taylor, saying I ain't do what I did. I looked out for everybody on the coast. That's Glasses Malone. I might be the most seen.
Then he took it another step further. He mocked the game for trying to paint himself as someone deeply connected to the neighborhood, someone still tapped into the street energy. Kendrick's cousin pushed back on that image hard, laughing at the idea that the game was moving the way he claimed. According to him, the game hasn't been active in anything like that for a long time, and saying otherwise just didn't add up. He also emphasized that Kendrick has done more for Compton than most artists ever will. Whether it was community work, public appearances, symbolic moments, or representing the city on a global stage, Kendrick's cousin made it clear that Kendrick's impact speaks for itself in ways that don't need to be debated. But here's where things get complicated. Even with 2T's and Kendrick's cousin both firing shots at the game, you still have to look at the full picture. These aren't neutral voices. These are people who already don't rock with the game on a personal level. They already felt some type of way about how he moved during Kendrick's situation with Drake. So now, anything the game says, even if there's some truth to it, will get dismissed before it even lands. And that's exactly why things get messy. Narratives in situations like this don't always come down to what actually happened. Sometimes it's about pride, past disagreements, old assumptions, and unresolved tension. 2T's and Hit AJ3 have made it extremely clear that they don't trust the game's intentions. They believe his stories come with embellishments, and they aren't about to let him place himself in the center of Kendrick's rise. From their perspective, the game didn't step up publicly when Kendrick needed support during the Drake situation. So why would they believe him now, years later, when he suddenly wants to highlight how much he admired Kendrick early on? That's the core of the resentment. People close to Kendrick don't think the game earned the right to speak on Kendrick's legacy in such a personal way. And because the relationship between their camps was already fragile, these new claims added fuel to issues that have been simmering for a long time. In the end, this isn't just about whether the game tried to sign Kendrick or not. It's about loyalty, perception, neighborhood politics, and old friction resurfacing in the public eye. And now that both sides have spoken, the tension is even more visible. And far from being settled. The tension between the game and Kendrick Lamar's circle didn't come out of nowhere. A lot of it traces back to the way the game handled the situation during Kendrick's explosive back and forth with Drake. People in Compton still talk about that moment because it left a mark on how both camps look at each other today. Back then, when things were heating up and multiple artists were releasing tracks aimed at Drake, including Rick Ross, Kendrick, and others, the game made a move that shocked a lot of people. Instead of standing beside the artists who were pushing back against Drake, the game stepped in on Drake's side and released a track going at Rick Ross. That alone raised eyebrows. But then he added a couple of Kendrick Lamar references in the track, which made everything even more confusing. Some listeners felt the game was showing love, others felt he was creating distance. The tone was different depending on who you asked, because if you're taking Drake's side in the middle of one of the biggest conflicts in hip-hop, and you mention Kendrick while going at Rick Ross, it creates a strange message. Folks close to Kendrick didn't know if the game was trying to salute Kendrick or subtly shade him, and Kendrick's circle didn't stay quiet about it. Hit AJ3, along with others from Compton, reacted instantly. They felt the game made the wrong move publicly and didn't show the loyalty they expected, especially considering how much history the game claimed to share with Kendrick. And once the backlash hit, the game took to Instagram Live to address everything head on. I remember watching that stream, and the game wasn't holding back at all. He was frustrated, irritated, and clearly tired of the whispers coming from different pockets of Compton. He basically said if people had a problem with him, they should say it directly instead of throwing subliminals or talking behind his back. He made it clear he wasn't running from any tension and didn't appreciate being painted like someone who switched sides without reason. But the deeper issue wasn't just about Drake or Rick Ross. It was about how the game's move felt to Kendrick's inner circle. People around Kendrick saw it as disrespectful, almost like the game was choosing the opposite side of the city during a moment when they expected unity. Even though the game tried to explain himself, the damage was already done. During that live stream, the game was speaking directly to people tied to Kendrick, folks who were connected to his security team and neighborhood alliances. They were blunt with him. They told him straight up that he wasn't welcome in certain spaces anymore. They told him they didn't rock with him the same way, and the game didn't sugarcoat it. You could tell he was genuinely bothered because this wasn't random fans talking. These were people who had been close to the situation. Now here's where it gets tricky. Hit AJ3 and 2T's have a history with the game, so it's easy for outsiders to assume their reactions were personal rather than factual. Because of that past tension, people don't always treat their words as unbiased. That's why some folks felt like even if the game did try to sign Kendrick at some point, those two wouldn't acknowledge it, simply because they already don't like him. But there was one moment that really told the whole story. When a certain podcast reached out to Wack 100, someone who has been connected to the game game for years, they asked him straight up whether the game ever tried to sign Kendrick Lamar. And listening to that exchange was revealing. Wack didn't call the game a liar. He didn't insult him. He didn't try to expose him, but he also didn't confirm the story. He danced around the topic in a way that made everybody watching stop and think. The fact that Wack didn't validate the claim, even while keeping the game's name clean, said more than any argument online. It showed this situation is layered, complicated, and not as simple as one side telling the truth and the other side lying. And that silence from someone who could have cleared it all up, that might be the biggest clue in this entire story. When the question came up about whether the game ever tried to sign Kendrick Lamar, everything shifted toward Wack 100. Since Wack has been connected to the game for nearly 2 decades, people expected him to clear things up instantly. But instead of giving a straight answer, Wack moved carefully, showing love to the game without confirming anything. He kept saying things like, "That's my brother, I rock with him," but every time the topic came up, he dodged the actual point. He never said the game was lying, but he never confirmed the story either. And that silence spoke louder than anything. Then Wack added that the only people who would truly know what happened were 2T's and Top Dog. And that's when things took off. 2T's jumped in immediately, shutting the whole idea down and insisting the game was not telling the truth. Because 2T's already has tension with the game, some people weren't sure how much weight to give his words, but the fact he responded so quickly made the situation even messier. So now the story sits in a strange spot. The game stands on his version, 2T's calls it false, Wack stays neutral, and the city is left deciding who they believe. This whole situation shows how deep these histories go and how careful everyone has to move when old stories get brought back up. Let me know what you think. Do you believe the game or not? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and make sure you hit the next video popping up on your screen for even more celebrity drama.